A fan favorite character with the signature jump, waiting in the wings for years before finally getting the chance to star in their own game is not an unusual precedent for Nintendo to set. Luigi did it with great success, and now it's time for Princess Peach's turn. Princess Peach Showtime. Princess Peach Showtime is probably going to be one of the last big titles being released on the Nintendo Switch that isn't a remake or remaster at this point. The Switch is one of the company's most amazing success stories, both for hardware and software, and it makes sense that Nintendo would want to send it off into the sunset with a flagship character in their own brand new adventure. But Princess Peach Showtime is not exactly the most exciting, the best looking, or even the most technically proficient Switch game out there. Instead, it's a strange little experiment that, in my opinion, needed a lot more time in the oven. It's a thoroughly okay game, which really struggles at times. And that may come off as a bummer for those of you out there like me who wanted and expected more. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Completionist, where we don't just beat the games, we complete them. And today, Princess Peach Showtime is not ready for center stage. Let's begin.
Yes! All glory goes to the winner!
So before I really get into what it means to complete this game, I have to say, I have no idea who the target audience is for Princess Peach Showtime. You could argue that yes, a 36-year-old man like myself should not be judging a game like this so harshly because it's designed for children or young girls or women. But it seems to be aimed at less experienced Nintendo fans who maybe aren't quite prepared for the complexity of a Zelda or don't have the reflexes for a difficult Mario challenge. In my opinion, it's definitely not marketed to women or girls, like a Mattel Barbie game or something, but the completion experience is definitely focused on unlocking dresses and ribbons. So maybe I'm wrong there. I'd say it's ideal for younger players who love Peach and who are just getting started in their completionist journeys. And from that angle, Princess Peach Showtime might be considered a pretty fun time. For me though, and I expect for a lot of people who play games, they're going to come out the other side after completing this game wanting something more. Because this is one of the least optimized completion experiences I've ever experienced from a Nintendo title. All that said, I don't think Showtime is bad by any means. It's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. I'd even say it mostly goes down pretty smooth. The game defies easy categorization, but for the most of its runtime, it takes the form of an action platformer packed with novelty, featuring really great art direction and wonderful music. But looking at the pedigree of the developers and then looking at Showtime is when I started to get kind of bummed out. This game was developed by Goodfeel, one of Nintendo's longtime collaborators, and is directed by Etsunobu Ibisu, the guy responsible for the Goemon series. Now look, I've never talked about Goemon on this channel, but I absolutely love the Mystical Ninja series. Specifically Mystical Ninja starring Goemon on the N64. And if you know the level of novelty packed into every frame of that game, you can definitely feel the brush of inspiration on this title. But Showtime is nowhere near the level of Wario Land Shake It, Kirby's Epic Yarn, or Yoshi's Woolly or Crafted Worlds, all games made by Goodfeel. See, I found this frustrating because Princess Peach hasn't had her own game for quite some time. The last one we really got was Super Princess Peach for the DS, which, you know, has its problems. But in my eyes, I find that game to take bigger swings and to have more interesting ideas at its core than this one does, for an extremely recognizable Nintendo character, considering the Mario movie just came out last year, and someone who appears in nearly every single mainline Mario game. Peach doesn't get the chance to shine by herself all that much. On the one hand, it's awesome that she is the undisputed star of this game. On the other hand, I wish it were a better game, rather than just something that feels to me like Nintendo was trying to pacify a big portion of their fan base. 2024 is more than likely the final year of Nintendo actively developing games for the Nintendo Switch featuring flagship characters. Looking at the rest of the year, there's a couple of high-profile remakes coming down the pipeline, and that's seemingly it. at this point. So I'd say the hype for this title was okay, fine at best. Definitely interesting and intriguing. Nowadays, I try not to buy into hype cycles too much, but this one was hard for me to ignore. And the game starts off pretty strong. The opening cutscene is beautifully animated, with Peach and a couple of toads visiting the Sparkle Theater. This princess deserves a night on the town with her homies. And yes, in this case, the homies are the toads. But things are quickly awry when the evil sorceress Grape and her sour bunch show up. The talented Sparkler performers are captured and locked in the basement of this theater. And it's up to Peach and her new friend Stella to harness the power of acting? Yeah, let's say acting to save the day. It's a very bizarre premise. Extremely Nintendo doing their own Nintendo thing. And none of the usual suspects are here causing any trouble. No Bowser, Bowser Jr., no Magic Koopa even, not even a nod to Mario or Luigi. Instead, it's a full cast of shadowy purple folks. They invade every stage and every play, and most heinously of all, they shut down every production of every play. So what does this game look like in action? As Peach, you can wander around the hub world of the theater. It's not very interesting to explore, but it does look nice. From the theater hub, you can pick stages to enter, and once you do, you're whisked away. Each level is treated as a play, and each play has its own theme, mechanics, and starring role, which Peach steps into. So for the Swordmaster stage, you walk on in, the cowering Theets beg Peach to put on an awesome costume, and then you slash your way through the end of the level. Every stage has slightly different rules and moves you can do depending on the costume that Peach wears. This is definitely the main appeal of the game, seeing what Peach can put on next and how that affects the gameplay. Some stages are straightforward action platforming levels, with interesting combat mechanics that sometimes get out of hand in a wonderful way. And others take a slower pace, more like a classic exploration or adventure game. Some have mini boss fights and some don't. There's a lot of variety here. In terms of collectibles, this game reminds me of a modern Kirby or Yoshi game, very much in the design wheelhouse of good feel. Every level has a certain amount of sparkle gems to collect, as well as one special hidden dress ribbon item. You can also find thousands of coins, which can be spent at the shop in the lobby to unlock different dresses for Peach to wear, as well as different colors for Stella. Levels are short and linear and meant to be repeated to collect everything. I want to stress, they are meant to be completed multiple times for you to collect everything. Every stage is designed in a way where it's not quite the most intense game of hide and seek when it comes to getting all the collectibles, but I'll get to that in a bit. Once you play all the levels on a floor, you can then feed sparkle gems to Stella to open up a boss stage. Clear that stage and more levels and gauntlet challenges open up. Now there's a decent amount to unlock in this game. The pause menu has several different sections to fill up. You have the wardrobe section where all of Peach's unique dresses and Stella's ribbons are located. The album has pictures that are filled in when you fully complete a play by finding all the sparkle gems and the unique ribbons in each stage. Then there's the collection tab, which is basically filled up by simply playing the game. There's a page listing all of the ensembles that Peach can wear, a music tab with the full soundtrack of the game, and the movies page, which shows all the cutscenes and Smash Ultimate style intros for each new costume. It's a fair amount of stuff to unlock and complete, and honestly, it's not a difficult task by any means. This game clearly wants you to complete it. Yes, you need to go through a play more than once to find all the collectibles since you can't really backtrack through them. But once you understand what you're doing, you'll likely do everything you need in 2 to 3 passes. Whether or not you vibe with Princess Peach Showtime depends on how much you're blown away by the aesthetic. This is one of the more delightful looking and sounding games to come out recently on the Switch. So I almost hate to say that I was honestly pretty bored and frustrated by the actual completion process. At the end of the day, gameplay always trumps style, even if the style is amazing. I think the setup and intro to Princess Peach Showtime is solid enough. Once I stopped wondering whether or not familiar Mario characters would show up to round the cast, I settled into the rhythm of the game. But that rhythm is pretty slow paced and frankly not that interesting. This is a simplistic game. Now there's nothing wrong with it being simplistic, but I was hoping for a little something with more to grapple with. If this were an actual play, I'd compare it to a one-act show put on by a community college. Fun enough in the moment, but you won't be thinking about it for long and you probably won't need to go back to it. The highlight of Showtime is undoubtedly the costumes or ensembles that Peach steps into. This is the big idea of the game, and it is a great one. After completing Super Mario Wonder, I was interested to see if and how Nintendo would continue to iterate on the novelty that Wonder stuffed into every single corner. There are certainly elements of that sprinkled throughout Showtime. Whenever you encounter a new costume, Peach does a Sailor Moon style magical girl transformation into a slick new outfit. And every single one looks amazing. I think it's really smart that every play has a central mechanic and theme, but this is hampered by how simple the actual gameplay is. This is a 2-button game. Peach can jump, and she can use her own unique abilities that her costume bestows for that level, and that's it. And weirdly, she can't even do her signature floating jump, really anywhere in the game. You can jump and do your twirl to keep you elevated, but there's no float. I kept waiting for that to show up in some capacity, and it never does. I want that hover. Where's it at? It's one of the few interesting characteristics that we know exist with Princess Peach as a character. I really do want to celebrate the art direction though, because it's pretty spectacular when the game isn't chugging along. Unreal Engine 4 is not running well on the hardware here. The colorful costumes and whimsical art style reminded me a bit of a mashup of Paper Mario the Origami King and Yoshi's Crafted World. Levels often have a look of a puppet show where props and backgrounds have a papercraft style to them. When it runs smoothly, it looks very cool in action, and the big red curtain framing everything constantly reminded you that you're supposed to be watching a performance, which as a theater person is a very fun and cool idea. Though I never really felt that Showtime does anything meaningful with that conceit. Peach stars in these plays, but she's not exactly memorizing lines or preparing for the role in any meaningful way. And as a theater kid, again, the aesthetic and themes gripped my heart, so it was extra disappointing to feel like the game does nothing with those concepts. And maybe I'm being a bit too critical of the theater aspect here. It's mainly just a fun framing device. Peach's costumes are the real star here, and they all look awesome. My personal favorite was Mighty Peach, where she looks like she stepped out of a Mega Man game. These stages are awesome and action-packed, and it never stopped being hilarious watching Peach throw a bus with the strength of the Incredible Hulk. But honestly, all the outfits look great, and I would love a book full of concept art or something to celebrate the style of Showtime. Every costume is full of flair, and I love that every time you finish a play/stage, Peach gets to take a bow and show off her personality. That's the biggest thing this game has going on for itself. Because you spend so much time with Princess Peach, you really start to feel there's a personality developing with her, which is awesome. Each costume gets 2 acts devoted to it, with a 3rd challenge stage to overcome with a boss battle once you complete the first 2, with slightly different gameplay variations on each stage. But this is where the game falls apart a little bit for me, because some plays and acts are definitely more fun than others to complete. The first act of every costume stage, where they introduce the core mechanics that you'll be doing as that character, are almost all universally boring. Now the second acts, Act 2s, are great, really interesting and action-packed, and make a great case for why this game should exist. But it feels like it takes way too long of a time to get there. I tended to like the more action-forward ones. Swordfighter, Cowgirl, Mighty Peach, Kung Fu, and Ninja stages are fun and snappy and feel great to control, even if they're sort of fail-proof. Pretty much just button mashing your way through extremely easy enemies, but at least they look and sound great. That said, I hate to bag on the more unique plays because I love them in theory. Baker Peach, where you play as a baker doing little mini games to feed the masses or stop thieves from becoming sweet obsessed zombies, is a great idea. But in practice, these stages just don't feel good to complete at all. They feel like half-baked Mario Party diversions, and there is very little margin for error at all. As beautiful as these cakes and eclairs and cookies look, we know Peach is an amazing baker ever since Super Mario 64. The actual act of tapping buttons and decorating pastries is finicky and not that fun. The detective stages also stuck out to me, where you have to solve some kind of mystery to progress forward and find all the sparkle gems. Really fun idea. And I like that the gameplay totally switches up into something unexpected. But rather than a fun mystery or Phoenix Wright style investigation, you just kind of trial and error your way through a really obscure mystery that doesn't feel that fun to solve as you try not to lose all your hearts in the process. Do I like the idea of a savvy, smart, investigative Peach outsmarting her enemies like she's Sherlock Holmes? Absolutely. Do you get that from the gameplay? No, not really. My absolute least favorite of all would have to be the ice skating stages. Something about them feels terrible to control. The requirements are strangely exacting, requiring a precision that isn't present anywhere else in the game. I wouldn't go so far as to call it difficult or hard, it's just harder than anything else surrounding it. So these levels just feel mismatched. even if the animation of Peach speed skating backwards like an Olympic athlete looks incredible. There's no real penalty for failure in any level. If you just lose all your hearts, you lose 10 coins and pick up from the nearest checkpoint. But even this feels like a waste of time, because if you miss a sparkle gem or other collectible, it's almost impossible to go back and get it in that same run. So you might as well just start a stage over if you miss something rather than try and plow through it. This is the biggest problem I have with Princess Peach Showtime. For a game that encourages players to complete it, checkpoints are non-existent unless you die, and more often than not, when you are getting the sparkle gems, you have to get them by doing tasks perfectly. Those tasks are not always evident to where they should be or how to do them. Sometimes it's indicated by an X, meaning that you messed this part up. So you'll find yourself playing the stage for a little bit, realizing you missed a sparkle gem, and you'll have to restart the entire stage. There's no restart checkpoint, and yes, you could go through to the end and then play the stage again. But because it's not optimized for completion, you cannot skip cutscenes, you cannot skip dialogue, and more importantly, if you fail again, you restart the stage. So if it's something like Baker Peach where you're trying to do the cookie mini game or anything dealing with the cakes, if you don't get a perfect score, you have to restart the entire stage. What's weird is that this sentiment is not evident in every single costume or stage. And more importantly, you're not going to know until you play it. Now, it sounds like I'm complaining for no reason here, but if you are trying to complete the game, you're gonna have to replay these stages a lot more than you'd like. If these stages were fun, or you had the ability to restart on the screen that you wanted to, that would be different. But if you make one mistake, you either have to make the choice to beat the whole stage or start over again. It's a shame because I think Showtime is really close to being good. The presentation in every play is a little bit like the Luigi's Mansion games, where every room is a diorama with a few secrets to uncover. But the satisfaction of solving puzzles and finding collectibles is just all over the place. Some sparkle gems are so obvious that they don't feel good to find at all. They're clearly sticking out of a barrel, or you have to make a tiny jump to collect them. Again, I'm pretty sure I'm not the target audience for this game, but I think that's part of the frustration. This game feels like it's too dumbed down even for younger players. My nieces and nephews have 100% completed Super Mario Wonder without using YouTube. Arguably, that game is a little difficult for younger audiences. They're 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. They were able to figure it out. It's bizarre to me that with such an amazing concept and spread of ideas, and with developers who have executed very well exactly this kind of project before, that Showtime doesn't manage to be more interesting or downright fun to play. For every awesome level, like the ninja stages, which combine enjoyable platforming, speed, stealth, and action, you get a really frustratingly slow-paced one, like the mermaid stages, where you have to steer fish around to open up clamshells using Peach's lovely singing voice. Not super compelling stuff, even if the mermaid costume is very cute. Princess Peach Showtime is never downright bad. It's still a Nintendo game, and there is a lot of polish at certain points. But to me, I found it frustrating how the entire package never really came together into something compelling. I was hopeful that going full completionist would unlock a greater challenge or a more interesting endgame like in Super Mario 3D World or even Yoshi's Woolly World, but sadly, that was not the case. There is a lot to chase for completionists who want to explore every corner of the Sparkle Theater in Showtime. I'd say satisfaction may vary for the player. For me, I was left pretty cold. There are 30 plays or stages to complete in Princess Peach Showtime, 10 costumes total with 3 stages each. There are also a handful of boss stages between floors of the theater and some gauntlet levels to conquer to where you focus on a specific type of challenge with one of the many costumes. Unfortunately, I just found many of these stages boring or uninspiring, very hit or miss regarding the costumes and how the levels were built around them, which really is a shame. I feel the creativity was just not where it needed to be for this game to be a smashing hit. I said earlier that I'm not sure who this game is being marketed towards, and after completing it, that's even more true. There's really just one type of level in the game that's actually hard, and even then, they aren't that big of a deal. The 5 rehearsal challenge gauntlet stages. These are unlocked after you beat the boss of a floor. Essentially, you have to hit a certain score threshold in a timed challenge to get a gold medal to unlock a special dress and some currency. The tough part is, if you get hit or take damage in any way, you have to start the entire challenge over. With combat being this simplistic, however, it's not that hard to overcome, which just makes me wonder, why is it here at all? Fully completing each level by finding all 220 sparkle gems and the 32 dress ribbons fills out the art album. No surprises there. There is something satisfying about checking things off a list and knowing you found everything in the stage. Purchasing all the dresses and the ribbons requires a tiny bit of grinding, but as long as you're trying to collect every sparkle and replay each stage every time again, and you don't die too much, you're not gonna have any trouble doing this. Now, you don't get anything for buying out the entire shop, other than the satisfaction of knowing that you can change into any of the 40 dresses you've earned. They don't functionally change the game at all, but they're nice to look at. I do appreciate the appearance of Radiant Peach in the final boss of the game. Never thought I needed a supersonic version of Peach, but here we are. She looks spectacular, but it's a double-edged sword. It would be an awesome reward if you could take this version of the character into any previous level somehow, but every stage is very much its own specific thing, so you don't get the opportunity to do that. The game is overall fairly light on completion rewards, which isn't shocking given that Nintendo rarely does a big completion bonus, but I still find it a little disappointing. When you beat the game, you do unlock 2 new aspects of a post-game. One's pretty easy, and one is very frustrating. The first one is the boss challenges. There are portraits of all 5 bosses in the game that you can now go replay and fight. Doing these bosses have new challenges attached to them. Things like don't get hit, attack with certain projectiles, don't hit certain enemies during the fight, don't get spotted in the snake stage, so on and so forth. These challenges were kind of fun, but they were not difficult at all. Doing these gives you more sparkle gems so you can purchase all the decorations in the theater. The second and more frustrating thing to focus on here is the replayability when it comes to finding the 3 ninjas on every stage. The Ninja Master Sparkla literally tells you that they want to play a game with you. Every single stage now has 3 ninjas hiding in it, which means you have to replay the game again to find all 3 ninjas. Again, I'm not frustrated or angry with this aspect of replaying the game, but as you can tell, I had a pretty boring and underwhelming experience playing this game. So to replay it again to find 3 ninjas on every single stage is definitely unnecessary and kind of boring. If they introduced this concept in the middle of the game or towards the beginning, maybe when you even clear the ninja stages, that would be awesome. But with the lack of content in this game, it's telling you to just play the game again. And these ninjas aren't that hard to find. If you find all of the ninjas hidden throughout all the stages, you will get access to the Ninja Apprentice's dress. It's a little nod to what you just did. Play hide and seek with these fellas. Unfortunately, this leads to the overall disappointment of the completion bonus, which is nothing. I guess it's about the journey? I don't know, you decide. Through my completionist journey, it took me roughly about 12 to 13 hours to complete this game. There really isn't any compelling reason to replay this game. No harder difficulty or new challenges. It's pretty straightforward. Overall, I came away from the experience of completing Princess Peach Showtime a little mixed. It certainly has its moments, and I'm not mad or annoyed at the complete package, but I definitely was wanting more here. For one of Nintendo's most prominent characters, I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation. This game encourages the player to complete it, but it puts in the bare minimum in terms of challenge and rewards. It should be better than it is, especially for a full-priced game in an environment absolutely packed with strong competition. So, with that in mind, guys, I give this game my completionist rating of play it. I wouldn't necessarily skip it, but I wouldn't rush to complete the whole thing either. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time.